tongues. The Dutch Reform minister will say it's from the devil. The Apostolic Faith Mission person will say it's from the Lord. The New Apostolic theologian will say, I think it's from the devil, but I'm not sure. So, what is it? How do we know what's truth and what's not truth? Every single one of these 7 theologians believe that what they have is truth. My question that I have again in response to that is, you have these 7 theologians sitting around a table, 7 different perspectives on one Bible theme. How many perspectives should there be? 1. Question, is there a problem? Yes, of course there's a problem. If there should only be one Bible theme and we've got 7, then how many are accurate? 1. See, and this is the problem we have today. Each person that is around that table is filtering biblical information through their own perceptions or experiences, or maybe their own convictions and understanding. Every, say for example, the person that's experienced speaking in tongues will say it's truth because they've experienced it and their conviction is that it's truth. Somebody that hasn't experienced this will say it's a lie. And that's why we have these different perspectives around the table. But your own understanding, your own convictions, etc., these produce different and often contradictory interpretations of the very same thing. Question 4. What is needed? What do you think is needed to get rid of this confusion? Because this is Christian confusion. Everyone's arguing amongst themselves as to what is truth and what isn't. Question, what is actually needed? Surely what's needed is Jesus' interpretation. We should be looking at asking Christ, excuse me, could you tell me, what does this Bible passage actually mean? Because if we could find out what Christ's interpretation would have been, I think that would be the most reliable one. So, how does one find out what Jesus' interpretation would have been? It's actually quite simple. We need to use the same template or the same stencil as what he used. Here I show you a graphic of a stencil or a template with fragile. If you had what's that spray called? A spray paint. And you wanted to write the word fragile against the wall. All you had to do was put the template against the wall and take it away and you would have the word fragile. If I took the spray paint or even a pen without the template and I tried to write the word fragile and I wrote it again, every time I wrote that letter or the word, it would be different. And that's because I'm relying on my hand to produce the same template rather than the stencil itself. So we need to find out what template would Christ have used, or what stencil would have used, spiritual stencil, to understand Bible prophecy and Bible truth. Here's a graphic that I use to try and explain what happens and what I feel like as an evangelist. I travel around the world and I spread the word of God, but it feels to me like I've got an enormous task to try and convince the world about the truth of Jesus Christ. In fact, an impossible task. The world leaders today in the universities and number of places are all in violation of the word of God. To try and stand up for biblical truth is an impossibility. You see, that's true even inside Christianity. Because of these 7 theologians sitting around a table, all having their own perspectives, I'm just another one of those 7. So I feel like an evangelist trying to throw a stone at this mighty tank until I look into the sanctuary. When I look into the sanctuary, it's as if I take a nuclear hand grenade out of my pocket, and when I throw it at the tank disappears. It vaporizes. Because when you look into the sanctuary, you find truth through the stencil that Jesus would have used. I want to give you another example. I show you an image of a camera. Now, if I was to change the lens on the camera to a short one of those that takes a wide picture. Say I was looking at Table Mountain and I took a picture of Table Mountain with a short lens. And I print out the picture and I put it on the table. I then, because it's an SLR camera, which means that I can take the lens out, I take the short lens out and I put in a long lens. And I now take the same picture at Table Mountain. I print that out and I put the 2 pictures next to each other. Will those two pictures be the same? No. Obviously, the picture with a short lens will be dramatically different from the picture with a long lens. What changed? The lens. The filter through which I took the picture. You see, that's exactly what the Christian community is like. The camera didn't change. That's Jesus Christ. The filter, however, the lens, is what I call the critical component. If you want to look into the Bible and you want to take a photograph of Bible truth, if you want to understand what's written in the Bible, you need to put into the camera the lens that Jesus would have used. I call it the critical component. So let's look for a moment at Malachi 3 verse 6. It says there, "For I am the Lord, I change not." It doesn't say I change sometimes. It says I change not. So if Jesus was to change, or if somehow the truth was to be changed, it would cause the Bible to be a lie. So maybe then the Old Testament has a lot more to do with the New Testament than what we generally understand. Let's look at another one. Jesus said, "Assuredly, I say unto you, unless you are converted and become as little children, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven." Unless we become like what? Little children. Now, anyone that has little children will understand what I mean when I ask this question. Does your 3-year-old, 2-year-old child, do they take everything you say at face value? Yes, they do. They take everything you say. Go and pick up your shoes, my dear. Yes, mommy. Yes, daddy. How do they respond? Why? Have you noticed that? A child's the favorite saying is, why? Don't go and play on the national highway, my darling. Okay. Why? Because there's traffic, there's lots of people and you're going to get hurt. Why? Well, the people are going to work and coming back from work. Why? Because they need money for their house. Why? Because they must buy groceries. Why? Because they're hungry. Why? I don't know why. But that's how children are. Why? Now Jesus says, unless we become like little children, we will not see the kingdom of heaven. So what is the question that Christians should really ask more often? Why? And this is what I want to suggest or promote. I dare you, I don't know what religion you are, I don't know what denomination you are. If you're New Apostolic, go to the leaders of the church and ask them, why? If you're from the Dutch Reformed Church, go to the pastor, the dominee, and ask him, why do we keep church on a Sunday? Whatever the question is, instead of taking it at face value, unless you become like a little child and ask why, we might have a problem. I challenge you today to ask more why questions. So, the reason I'm speaking to you about the critical component is the sanctuary of the Old Testament answers all those why questions. Let me give you an example. The Lord calls Moses to negotiate Israel's freedom. And I'm reading from Exodus 3, verses 2 to 10. Read it with me. And the angel of the Lord appeared to Moses from the midst of a bush. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt, for I know their sorrows. So I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. The Lord then calls Moses up into Mount Sinai, Exodus 24:18. So Moses went into the midst of the cloud and went up into the mountain, and Moses was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. What do you think the Lord spoke to Moses about for 40 days and 40 nights? Well, here's one of the things that were discussed. In the very next chapter, Exodus 25, it says, speak to the children of Israel that they may bring me an offering. And this is the offering you shall take from them, gold, silver, and bronze, blue, purple, and scarlet thread, fine linen, and goat's hair, ram's skins dyed red, badger skins, and acacia wood, oil for the light,